Good morning, world. David Paul here. All my 201 subscribers, much appreciated. I'm here in Portugal, looking out of one of my front doors of the house at my lovely view. It's a bit misty and slightly rainy, although it's not really falling and dropping. It's more misty, really. You know, there's a slight amount of rain this morning. Now, what happens here is it is now, maybe I should tell you all this because there are people thinking about living in Portugal. It's now 9:30. What happens is around about 10, it's always the case, everybody says, like, stay out of the sun 10 to 12. Around about 10, the sun is going to crack over that mountain there, down there. And then suddenly the place will really warm up a lot. However, I don't know if it's going to burn a hole through the clouds today. I think it probably could. And if it does so, we'll have clouds. It'll be like a normal place, you know. Normally in Portugal, you just don't have any clouds. It'll be a normal place, and it'll be warm, you know. So I've got my jacket on today because I'm heading off in 1.5 hours. I'm going to head off to Penella, where I'm going to get some money out the bank. I discovered to my surprise that I had more money in my bank than I thought I had, and as a result I'm now at liberty to start buying stuff. Now, that track opposite, guys are going up and down there with trucks with eucalyptus logs on the back, and I spoke to one of them, and he said, well, I'll have to consult my boss because I wanted to buy eucalyptus logs off him. So I've got it all figured out now, and he said yes. So we just really have to arrange a deal now. Is he gonna do it for the right price? And I'm just praying that I'll get a good deal on this because I need to save money. Okay, so an update on what's going on. I have been bringing down these tiles from the other house where they were donated. I've got thousands more. I have a donation from the builder of another batch, so I've got enough to do the entire roof of this house. Free gratis, just free. If you take your time in Portugal, you know, things slowly come to you. There are resources here to be had. Okay, so what am I going to do now? Well, I'm getting sick of the physical... Well, it's the physicality of living in a tent and everything. And on top of that, having to do physically demanding jobs. So, what I'm going to do, I've got about 11 days left. No, I've got 9 days left in Portugal. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do something very tedious but physically not very demanding, which is to clean out all of this area. I'm going to get my brush and I'm going to brush it up onto my little spade-like thing, like a cleaner would do, you know, like sweeping the floor, in the most slow, tedious sort of way you can imagine. And I'm going to just take it shovel by shovel and dump it outside. And that's going to be physically not very demanding at all. Actually, I might buy a radio today, so I've got some entertainment while I'm doing it. And that's that. So, what's been going on? I've got these two beam things up the top here, these old doors. There are 3 doors. Which are a beast to get up, but I used this methodology using this thing to crane them up, and then I got them onto a tipping point and then just slid them along. So that's fine, and they're in. I will find more wood from the other side there and bring it over eventually and form a roof of a sort, onto which I can then put my plastic sheet, which will drape down here, and then I've got myself a cabin. I've got an interior tiny cabin within a house. Then what I got to do is I got to have it nice and ultra clean and smart in here, because this is where I'm going to be living for quite some while. while I do this house. So what needs to be done? And where does the job go now? Well, the first thing is, I will probably simply clear out this rubbish here, because it is a job that needs to be done, but it is low demand. However, I bumped into this guy who agreed to sell me the wood, right? So these beams, these concrete beams up at the top here, I don't need to measure the wall, because it turns out these are 5.6 meters long. Well, I'm going to call that 5.5 because the 5.6 is a tight fit, and I've had to like dig into the wall by about 2 inches in order to get them in. So I'm going to call that 5.5 meters. And if you divide that up, if I was to put logs across here, on logs from one side to the other as a floor, I would need logs which are, say, 25 centimeters wide, which would give me a floor of 5.5 meters, and I would need a floor consisting of 20 logs. So there's the offer to the guy: sell me 20 logs, 25 centimeters wide. You can't sell me 25 logs, damn right. Okay, how about 20 logs at 25 centimeters? How about 20 centimeters? And I'm not going to go below that, because they're getting too thin then, and they're going to get bendy. Okay, so I get 25 logs at 20 centimeters either way. So okay, I've got my logs. What do I do with my logs, and what length do they need to be, and what am I going to, why do I want them now, and so on? Well, because if I take those logs and I stand them leaning against this concrete beam downwards, in fact, if I put a slight angle on them, they'll just self-support. They cannot fall over. They physically cannot. And the reason why they cannot fall over is because this beam's here, they would just tip over and then just hit that and stop. But they're not going to fall over, because I'm going to tie them onto that beam with cord. So each one is going to be tied to that beam. So the thing I have to do before I head off to Penella is I'm going to measure the width of this room and divide it exactly into two. And I'd say a few inches on, just for the purpose of shrinkage, and also for allowing me to make an accurate cut so that the thing precisely fits the room. Because when I get back, these beams will have stood here for like a whole year, and they'll be dry. In fact, there'll probably be gaps in that you can put your hand in. Okay. But I'll continue to use that. But when I want to use those beams as the floor for the top level, I'll purchase a small, I don't need a big one. I've thought this through. I need a small chainsaw. And the reason why a small one, not a big one, is because as things get smaller, they get stiffer. So I'll be able to make quite accurate cuts with the small chainsaw. And remember, I only have to make a depth of cut 25 centimeters. And in fact, I don't even need to do that, because mostly it'll, I can cut from both sides if I needed to. And there goes that truck again. I don't know where he is. Is he out there? Let's have a look, because he might be coming for me. I'm expecting him to come bursting to the door and saying, "Yo, senor, I have this for you." Yeah, there's that beast of a truck. Go on, beast of a truck. And there are the logs that will, they're not exactly those logs, but logs like that will be forming the logs of my ceiling. Now they're short logs, and I really don't want them. Ideally, this is what I want. In the center beam there, to the edge of this wall, underneath that center beam, I'm going to have a structural wall, right? So basically that's the end of it. That'll take like 1,000,000 ton sort of thing. I'm not going to make it out of these crappy breeze block things or these bricks that I have here. I'm going to make it out of solid concrete cast with steel reinforcing mesh in it, and it will support the whole bloody house if necessary. So that structural wall will go in there. In fact, just this very instant, I've just decided I'm going to do it in concrete. Okay, so that'll be meshed and it'll be solid. You could ram it and it wouldn't break or anything like that. And that will take the load at one end, and this is going to take the load at the other end with a little bit supplement in the middle, and also on the other side of the house over there. Okay, why do you want to do that? Well, because it means that I can use shorter lengths. I don't have to use lengths which run the entire width of the house. That's asking for too much. Okay, so what does that mean then? That means between these beams is approximately, it's around about 2 meters. It's around about 6 feet, to be honest. Slightly less than 2 meters. The things on the back of that truck are about 2 meters long, and I could put those beams across here, 2 meters across here. But the problem with that issue is that it means that it has like a hinge point here where that is a separate beam to that beam coming from that direction, and that's not what I want. I want the beam to run continuously from there all the way across to there. So what I've got to do is I've got to order the length of beam, which is going to run from the center of the house right to the edge of here. And I did consider trying to purchase logs which run the entire width of the house, but it seems to me that that's a silly idea because it's not necessary. I've got that supportive wall in the middle which will take any compressive load I care to shove on it. It doesn't care. So there's no need to have a beam which runs across, to have planks which run across, sorry. Okay, so the logs are standing here, forming the function of a wall on a tiny house. And then what happens after time, they start to dry, and then they're ready to be cut. So what I do is I split them down the middle. And I elevate them to the roof, to the top. And I've got enough beams to cover from the center of there to here. But of course, remember, I've just split each log into two. So now I've got enough to run from the center of there to the other side. So I've got enough to floor the entire top floor, this ceiling here, with these logs. Now I keep mixing the terms beams and planks and whatnot. Well, this is an idea I've had for a long while. And what I'm wanting to do is, I thought, if you're building a log cabin or something like that, you don't actually need floorboards. You can just do everything. So how many floor beams are you going to fit? Well, actually, you could just fit everything as a floor beam, so that nothing can fail and your structure's immensely strong. Now, we're all whinging about CO2 emissions. Well, one of the complaints about log cabins is that they use up too much wood, but that's actually desirable because they're turning carbon negative. So what they're doing is they're eating up CO2. So try and find as much wood as you can put into a building as you can. It doesn't matter. You go crazy on the wood. Of course, you have to actually regrow the wood, but you can put as much in as you want. So having taken a 25 centimeter thick log and cut it into two, I now have a 12.5 centimeter log with maybe a bit of shrinkage and maybe a bit of planing to do to make it nice and smooth and so on. But anyway, I'll end up in a situation where the straight part of the log which runs through would be about 4 inches thick, which is about, I would say, almost three times the thickness, certainly no, in honesty, about 3 times the thickness of a scaffolding plank. And we're all happy walking around on scaffolding planks. There's a plank up there that looks like a scaffolding plank, but I guess it was made for that purpose, possibly. And I'm happy to walk around on that, but it flexes slightly, and I don't like it. So if it was double the size, or if it was triple the size, it goes up with the square. The stiffness goes up with the square of the thickness. So it's now going to be 9 times as stiff as that plank there. Well, I'm well happy with that. Okay, 9 times the stiffness. And then add in on top of that the specific gravity, or the weight per unit volume, if you like, of the wood that I'm using, the eucalyptus, is really way high. It's very high. I can't remember, it's like 8 or 9. So it's like about twice the measure of that thing. So in proportion to that, you can also like double. There's twice as much wood, and you can double that again. So we're going like 9 now. So we now got a beam which is 18 times a beam floor plank, if you like, which is 18 times as stiff. My God, that is so stiff. I'm going to be walking on this floor and it's going to be completely dead. And that's it. So, so what we have here, we have these beams here, and we need to have a ring concrete beam running around here. How do we deal with that issue? And the fact that putting it in there is now going to raise the floor. Oh dear, that's no good. And then this beam's going to get shoved up in the air, or what's going on here? So what I need to do is I need to remove a couple of stones there, and remove a couple of stones over there, and likewise over here, a couple of stones there. Right, and dig in a bit there into this stonework here, and remove some stone there, over there. This is the part which I call Portugal, because it's the bedrock stuff. Dig into there. Right, you've done that now. Now where do you end up? Well, you're now a bit lower down, right? And I'm taller than 4 inches taller than normal because of all this crap in the floor here. So I wouldn't be standing so tall here. When you go to that cleared area over there, you find that the ceiling heights are much better, because there's about 4 to 6 inches of old cow dung and soil and lime and stones and God knows what in this, you know. Okay, so now this beam comes down a bit. Then above it sits the new concrete beam which runs around the circuit beam. Then on top of that sits this floor of these 12 centimeter thick logs. So there'll be like a sort of curved shape on the bottom of the log which runs in this direction. That will be machined off to reveal a live edge. So you've got like floor beams with live edges on them, with a flattened face on it to show the figure of the wood, the pattern of the wood as you cut through it. And that's what you got. That's what you got. Now, so you're down a little bit to accommodate that beam. You're up a bit again because you've put a concrete ring in with reinforcing bars. Then you've got the wooden floor, which now takes you back up again, and you are now standing on the top of the wooden floor at the level of that window. So the floor will be continuous throughout the house, in this single room house, at the level of that window. That's the reference point for everything, that window. Everything is at the height of that. Job done. And that's it really. So immensely strong. Then the next task after all of that comes the preservation of the wood, which I've got a special technique, because down here, woodworm are they're just all over the sodding place. They're just like, every piece of wood you see looks like a dartboard because they're in it. And they're not getting into my floor or anything that I build. I had a plan. I'm going to make my own furniture. I tried it out in the Philippines. I think I put stuff on about that on my channel. And I've been experimenting with making Japanese style type furniture, and I also like the cowboy style log home type furniture. So I haven't made my mind up yet, but if I were to do the Japanese style furniture, it would use a tremendously less wood, and therefore it would bring in the possibility of using all kinds of interesting things like cherry tree wood, because with furniture, remember, you only need short lengths of that. One last little bit about the ceiling. It turns out, you say, oh well, this is a great idea and it's all going to be just dandy, and then what happens is I put the wood here and I do it, and then I find at the end of the process that the wood has shrunk, because it will shrink. So instead of the wood fitting, it doesn't fit all of a sudden. Well, the first point is, along the edges, there's a big plank that runs along there, which is the concrete beam, in a sense. So you don't actually need to worry about what lengths of wood that you put over the top of the concrete beam, because it's the beam doing all the work. Okay. So you can leave gaps at the edges or whatever you like, you know. So I'm going to be okay on that. But in addition to it, what I'm planning to do is I'm going to use some narrow strips of eucalyptus wood, i.e. narrow trees. And with these, what I can do is, let's imagine that you lose 4 centimeters. For each log, you lose like 4 centimeters of width. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some narrow, thin eucalyptus trees, and I'm going to form some thin planks, which will still have the same depth, but they will be narrow in that direction. And then I will simply inlay them between every other plank, and it should produce an interesting sort of pattern. And I can screw them to the side of the planks, and it'll even help tie together the entire structure, and that'll solve that problem. It'll solve the problem of any movement of adjacent planks, where planks are end to end. They can't move because they've got 2 strips running between them, holding them in position. So a million things to do there. And anyway, it doesn't really matter, because if the sides drift away from the walls, so long as I have a central part that I'm walking on, there can be a gap at the edges, and later on I can purchase more wood and fill them in later. So it's not the end of the world. Each of the planks will be run down straight, but leaving a portion of the waney edge, the live edge, waney edge, whatever you call it, on the underside. So when you look up, you will see this pattern. I think I've thoroughly covered what I'm up to now. Now I've simply got to get some money and wave it in front of his nose and pray that he's going to take the bait and get on with it, because I'm running out of time. Also on Monday, I've got to go and try and get a NIF. It's like a national insurance number, tax number for Portugal. And once I've got that, then I'm winning. I'm ahead. Now, what I said about the sun will come out and burn a hole in it. Lo and behold, outside, what's it doing? It's brightening up. And give it a half an hour and it'll actually be hot, and I'm taking this coat off and complaining I'm hot. So, that's it. So, Jesus be with you.